Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. I am your host, Adam Labar, as always, and today I am stoked to, we already had a quarter of a podcast just before we started recording, but happy to have Chris Michaels on. Chris, I jumped onto your Storage Rebellion call a couple weeks ago. It was awesome. I love being able to do it and have a conversation with you, so I'm looking forward to you returning the favor and jumping over here and chatting with me for a little while. So, Chris, if you can, please go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us about your family, and tell us about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation. So a little bit about myself. My name's Chris. I run a company called the Storage Rebellion. I live here in upstate New York, Rochester, and been here my entire life. I have 2 amazing parents. I'm one of 3 brothers, or I should say one of 2 brothers. There's 3 of us total. I'm the youngest. I've done a lot of different things in my life as far as business-wise, and kind of ended up where I am right now, I think, through the grace of God and His guidance and timing, and a whole bunch of things that we'll get into, I'm sure. But that being said, yeah, I have married to my wife, Cassandra. We got married in 2018. We have twins right now, a boy and a girl. They just turned 2 years old, which is very fun. They're at the phase where they're getting a lot of personality. They're talking a lot more, and so it's fun. It's a lot of work, but it is such a blessing, and we're really enjoying it. But yeah, I'm happy to open up, and I know we're going to go in a few different directions today, so I'm excited to cover it all.
Yeah, I have no idea where we're going to go, but I guess we're about to start finding out, right? So twins, that must have been so my sister had twins, and she was like, yep, I am totally done. She had 1 boy, 1 girl, said, I am done, never doing this again. She had a little bit of a rough pregnancy anyways. But what were you guys' thoughts when you found out that you were having twins?
So this is an interesting story. Maybe similar to your sister. So my wife and I struggled to have kids for about 2 years. We were doing some treatments. We weren't doing IVF, but we were doing some treatments to increase our chances. We struggled, like I said, for a couple of years, and then I always told my wife, I was like, I have a feeling that we're gonna have twins. And then I was like, once we were going through this phase where it was taking us a while to get pregnant, I was like, I really think God's just going to bless us for being patient. He's just going to give us 2 right off the bat. We'll be good. And that's exactly how it ended up happening. And it was funny because when we first found out that my wife was pregnant, we went in to do the ultrasound, and they found the first baby, which was our daughter. And it was the weirdest thing because there was this relief, there it is. There's our baby. We've been trying for the past 2 years for this. And then there was another sense of me that was like something I don't want to say disappointed because I wasn't, but something was missing. I was like, no, there has to be 2 in there. I was like, there has to be. I was like, keep looking around. And it actually took the ultrasound tech maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Then they found the second one. I was like, there it is. And so I was actually really excited about it. And I just felt for the longest time, I was like, God's going to bless us with twins. And that's exactly what happened. It was funny because when they found the second one in there, I was like, that's it. I was like, don't find a third. If you do, that's fine. But I don't know how. Twins is an incredible blessing. It's so unique. We know a couple people who have triplets. And wow, that's a whole nother realm. And so again, tremendous blessing, but it's just, it's a different experience. So we have 2 right now. We're very happy. I'm not sure if we would have a third or not. You and I had this conversation when we first met.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy with where we are right now, and especially because we struggled for 2 years. I won't lie, there's a part of me that worries about that again. But as of right now, we got 2 healthy kids, love them to death, and just feeling very blessed about it.
What's going on, everybody? I wanted to jump in and take a second to tell you about the awesome team over at Wise VAs. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we can feel a bit overwhelmed with mundane tasks that eat up our valuable time, and it's time to reclaim that schedule, all right? It's time to stop doing some of those $10 an hour jobs and give them back to an elite group of talent that are there specifically to help you and help you stay in your zone of genius. So delegate those $10 an hour tasks to focus on more $1,000 an hour tasks. Reclaim what matters most in your life, which is your time. Get that amazing team of elite remote talent that is there to help support you and make sure that you are giving back the best to your company. So schedule a free strategy call at getwisevas.com/Adam. That is getwisevas.com/Adam. It is an amazing group, an amazing team. They do an awesome job with everything that they've got going on there. If you have some tasks on the side, whether it's administrative, whether it's editing, whether it's recording, whatever it is, they have got an assistant for you, someone who is going to be able to help you out and take some of those tasks off of your plate. I thank Wise VAs every day for helping me process all of these podcasts, helping me take care of a bunch of stuff in the background, and I definitely would recommend them over to you. So again, getwisevas.com/Adam. All right, thanks a lot. Back to the show. Yeah, so it took us a while between kids. We have 4 years in between each kid, but we were trying for probably 2 years, and it was like, golly, the docs were like, we had our first kid and then we ended up with our second 4 years later. And then we were trying for a while for the third because we wanted to have it closer, not 4 years. Like that was a lot. And the doctors were like, all right, well, we may want to start thinking about other options, the different treatments or different things. And my wife was just like, no, let's save those appointments for folks who are struggling for their first or something like that. Like we're already blessed with 2. If we end up with a third, we end up with a third. And so for the first 2, what ended up happening is the military would send me away for a while. And then when I came back, ta-da, so it's like, oh, that's just what we need to do. Like the military just needs to send me somewhere for a while and then I come back and here we go, but that's not the way it worked for the third one. But for me, I always recommend, and I think I recommended it to you before, is have as many as you can. I would have 7 if I could, but when they're all 4 years apart, you end up getting to a point in life where you have to kind of stop. So that's kind of where my wife was. She's like, we're done after this 3. So, but yeah, I would highly recommend having as many of them as possible. I want to rewind a little bit, right? You talked about you were the youngest of 3 boys growing up in upstate New York. I don't remember if we talked about this or not, but I graduated high school outside of Syracuse.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with there and all the way up in the Plattsburgh area. I lived up there for quite a while too. So way upstate New York.
Yeah.
I want to kind of rewind and understand what it was like for you growing up. Talk about your parents, talk about what the kind of lifestyle you guys had, maybe what kind of father figure you remember versus what you have now.
Yeah, so I mean, we were very blessed. We, my family, my parents and I, my brothers and I, we're all very, very close. We, I should say my dad actually, he was born and raised in Sicily. He moved here actually yesterday. I think it was 60 years since he came here, and came here when he was 10. He went straight to Brooklyn. Their family went to Brooklyn from there for a couple years. Then they came here to Rochester, where we've been our whole lives, as far as my brothers and I. And my dad, grown up in his, one of the things that my dad always has was he loved to build things, and he always loved to figure out how things work. He would take things apart as a kid and figure out how to put it back together. And my dad's probably one of the most handy people that I know. He's right now, and he's getting ready to retire, but he has a remodeling business. My older brother went into that as well, working with my dad. And so I grew up doing that. Actually, it was probably one of the first things that I did. But kind of going back a little bit, my dad, when he's probably in his early 20s, he was working, I don't know if you remember the company, I'm sure you do, Kodak. And the central hub for Kodak was right here in Rochester. And at that time, they had like 70,000+ employees. Like Kodak was huge. And so my dad was working there after he had all of us. So I think when I was between 1 and 2 years old, he was still there. But he was working the night shift. So he'd leave maybe 6, 7 o'clock at night, come home the next morning, then he'd have to sleep. And one of the things that he just hated was being away from his family, being away from his kids, and, missing parts of the day because he was too tired and he had to go into work that night. And he was working like 6 days a week. And I got to give my dad a lot of credit because at a very young age, he had, 3 kids, a wife, and he just made a decision. I don't want that life. Like, I don't want to be away from my family. I don't want to be away from my kids. And so he was trying to figure out, what do I do? And so one of the things, like I said, that he was great at was building and fixing things and all of that. And so at that time, there was a bunch of like new developments going in our area. And so he just started connecting with different builders. And one of the builders, I think, asked him, he's like, hey, do you know how to do like tile floors and things like that? And he's like, yeah, I know how to do that. And he just figured out how to do it. And he started his own business doing flooring. And then over the years, it kind of evolved into kitchens and bathrooms. And my dad self-taught himself how to do everything. And he's just extremely talented. And one of the qualities that my dad has that I think he passed on to me was that whatever he does, he's going to figure out how to be good at it. If he's going to put his attention into something, he's going to figure out how to do it right and how to be good at it. And I certainly have that, and it's helped me in a lot of areas of my life. But my dad grew this business and was able to provide for his family. And kind of looking back, one of the things that I really remember most is that he was available, right? He was always there, and he had the flexibility to do that, having his own business. And so it wasn't until I was older that I really maybe stood that and appreciated it more, because when I was a kid, it was just like, oh, dad's around. That's awesome. But then when I got older, I started to realize what a gift that was, and that, that's what I want to be able to provide for my family. I want to be there for them. And so, man, he did a great job. He raised, I think, 3 really great kids, and took care of us, gave us a great life, put us in good schools, and we were just tremendously blessed.
Was your mom a stay-at-home mom, or did she have a job too?
My mom was stay-at-home I can't remember the full years, but for a little bit she was, and then she ended up going back to work, and she worked in the school district, and she ended up working at the high school that I ended up going to. And so, of course, in high school, I took advantage of that, getting hall passes and late passes and things like that. But yeah, she ended up doing that for quite a few years. And yeah, like I said, my family and I were very close. It's funny because when you're a kid, and you could probably resonate with this, like when you're a kid, you spend all your time with your parents and your family. Then you get into your teenage years, you get some independence, you're like, I'm going to go do some stuff and explore. And then you get older, you get married, you have your own family, start settling down, and now it's like, well, now all I want to do is just be around my parents and my family. And so like it starts to come back around. But yeah, to this day, we're all still very close.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's for me, excuse me, I had 2 older sisters, and they tortured me. And so and my oldest especially, she hated my guts for the longest time until I left for the military. And then she was like, man, I actually kind of like that little brother of mine now that he's not here. Like, what the heck? And now we're all super tight, super close. We're all, we have conversations all the time. They still live in New York. I don't know why. Okay. I need to get them out of there. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of hear the family dynamics on how everything goes. And my dad worked a lot of night shift stuff, the 8 to 16-hour shifts all the time he was gone. No, I love hearing it. So what was it like kind of watching your dad grow a business, right? Did he talk to you about the business stuff at all? Like, I know you said you didn't really realize it till later, like, hey, I've got a dad is always around. That's really cool. Like, what sort of conversations did you have about it? Because you end up going into business yourself.
Yeah, we didn't really talk too much business until I got older, and he could really see I had that entrepreneurial mindset. But, he did always try to instill a lot of things within us as far as like, whatever you're going to do, be great at it and do your best at it. Another thing that I always taught us was, don't rely on other people. Figure out how to do this and be successful. Don't ever have to rely on somebody else to carry you. And man, my dad was a very hard worker. So watching how hard he worked, you just kind of starts to become part of you, and you just, you're a product of your environment. So you see your dad working hard, and that ends up being how my brothers and I were. We worked very hard at whatever that we had a passion for, whatever we put our mind and heart to. As I started getting older, we certainly talked a little bit more business stuff. One of the things that my dad never did, and we ended up talking about this probably for the first time maybe like 6 or 7, well, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago when I was in my early 30s. He said, one of the things I always wanted to do, but I just never got into it because I didn't know how and I didn't know where to start, was real estate. And because he was so good at like fixing houses, and he could build, my dad could build a house if he wanted to build a house. Like, he understands how everything within the home works. And so they could have easily flipped houses and done things like that, but he never did. And he always told me, that's one of the things that I regretted, was never stepping into it. And it was funny because when we were talking about this, I was also starting to explore real estate. Maybe that's how the conversation came up, because I saw a lot of people living the type of life that I had always wanted to have, and they were all in real estate or they had real estate investments. Mm-hmm. And similar to my dad at that time, I was like, I just don't understand I don't understand the lingo. I don't understand how to put a deal together, how to even get funded. Like, I didn't get it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to figure it out. And so I slowly started figuring it out as far as talking to more people in real estate, trying to determine, like, I thought I was going to flip houses or like buy maybe residential stuff. And it isn't until maybe 2019-ish, I got into storage investing. And the only reason I got into storage investing was because I was working for the company I own now. I was an employee of the company at the time, and I was doing marketing for the Storage Rebellion. And that was another business that I started. I got out of the contracting work that my dad was doing. I liked it, but it didn't fulfill me. And I was trying to kind of find what I wanted to do. And so I started doing marketing, and then got connected with Mike Wagner, who owned the Rebellion at the time. And so I was around people doing storage. Didn't know anything about storage, but I was surrounded by people. I was doing their content, stuff like that. So as I'm kind of in the Rebellion, I'm also learning about the storage stuff and the storage lingo. And I was seeing people collect checks for like $800,000, $1 million, and I saw what these people were doing, and to me it didn't look like they were that busy. I was like, how did you do that? Like, how did you make that much money? And I know you're traveling all the time with your family. You're like, I found it fascinating. And so, kind of to fast forward a little bit, and feel free to stop me at any point if I'm getting in a tangent here, but I, at the time, was trying to grow this marketing business, wasn't doing that great, started falling behind financially, newly married, just bought a house, and started collecting debt, and it was piling up, and we got to a point where it was like, we can't afford anything, like, and every day that goes by, we were falling further behind. Not that we were spending, it's because late fees kept adding up and tacking on, and so it was a very pressure situation where like this weight and this anxiety was crippling me every day, and I was just trying to figure out how do I make enough money to get out of this situation. At that time, I think I was like 18 or 20 grand to just get out of the hole, and so had no idea what to do, and I just felt God kind of pulling me to figure out this storage thing. And so most people, I think, would have said I was crazy, maybe a little stupid, because every day I was falling further behind. And real estate, so it's like I needed quick cash. It's probably going to take me 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months to do a good storage deal to start making some decent money. On top of that, I don't have any capital to invest. I don't have any real estate experience. I don't have any storage experience. So I didn't know what else to do. And I felt God kind of pushing me in this direction. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to follow this. And so I just took the first step, and the first step was, what is a deal? And where do you find them? And that was the first step. And so I just learned what to look for, where to find them, and then how to articulate what it was so that I could then get funding afterwards. Because if I can't explain to anybody why it's a deal, nobody's going to give me money for it. And so I just figured out that first step. I started messaging business owners on Facebook who owned a storage facility, because they would have their storage facility business page. So I would send them a message on Facebook and just say, hey, my name's Chris, getting into self-storage, and we're looking to buy a facility. Just curious to see if you ever considered selling. And I could only send out like 45 messages at a time, because then Facebook would block you from sending out messages for like 48 hours because they thought you were spamming people. And so I'd send out like 45, wait a couple days, send out another 45, and then wait a couple days. And anyways, somebody ended up calling me from that list or those messages I was sending out. And it was a younger kid about my age. He called me. He's like, hey, are you real or is this spam? And I was like, no, I'm actually interested in your storage facility. He's like, oh, okay. I thought it was maybe spam or something. He's like, yeah, I got a facility that I'm looking to sell. And it turns out his dad wanted him to buy the business. He didn't know anything about storage, but his dad thought, hey, this would be a good investment. So he ended up getting a mortgage on it, bought the storage facility, didn't have the time to manage it, didn't know what he was doing, and didn't really have the energy to kind of figure it out. So It was a 10,000 square foot facility, like 20 or 30% occupancy, horribly mismanaged. And he had a mortgage on it for maybe $100,000 that was left. And so anyways, I collected all the information and then I said, hey, let me dig into this a bit more. And then I'll give you a call back and I'll let you know if it's something we want to move forward on. So I brought that deal to somebody who had more experience. So I leaned into a stronger environment. And then his name is Scott. He's a good friend of mine now. He actually grew up here in Rochester. And we've done a handful of deals together. But I brought it to him and we went through the numbers together. And he said, this is a good deal. He said, all of this makes sense. And I was like, okay, great. What do we do now? What do we do now? And so he's like, and this is, I think this is just all how God's timing. Even when I was in a situation where I was like, this is a very unlikely situation to work out and pan out to get you out of debt this quickly. Here I am. I have a deal in 6 or 7 days. And then, once you know it, Scott says, it's funny because I have a friend who lives like 30 minutes from this property. My wife and I are actually going there next week. He's like, call the owner and see if he'll meet me at the property. And before we get to our friend's house, we'll stop there on the way. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I called him and I was like, hey, my partner's looking to come down, meet you, see the facility. He's like, great. So they scheduled a time to meet. It was like 6 days later. So within like 14 days, we're progressing pretty quickly on this deal. And Scott, a couple days before, he calls me before he meets the owner. He's like, what are your thoughts on me bringing a contract with me and we'll see if we can lock it up? I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so he brings a contract with him. He walks the property. I'm FaceTiming with him. We're kind of going through everything. And we're talking through the numbers. He's like, let's make him an offer for $150,000. I was like, yeah, that makes the most sense based on the projections and what we thought it was worth. I thought that would make it a smoking deal. And so he's like, all right, I'll call you back. Has a conversation with the owner, calls me back 15 minutes. He's like, he agreed on it. We got the contract signed. Scott sent the contract over to me. And so here we are, 15 days or so, found a deal, got it under contract, and now we're moving into that due diligence period. So for me, because I was broke and needed some real quick cash, I was like, I called Scott, told him the situation I was in. I was like, would you be okay if we wholesale this deal out? He's like, this is your deal. He's like, I'm grateful you brought me in on it. If you want to wholesale it, let's wholesale it. And so we did. And we brought it to another investor within that Storage Rebellion network and found another investor who was, funny enough, also from Rochester, working a full-time job, looking to get out of his job because similar situation, like wanted to spend more time with his family, right? Like his job was consuming his time, his 9 to 5. So he took down the facility. We collected, I think it was a $60,000 wholesale fee check. Got myself out of debt, and that opened my eyes to the world of self-storage. I'd never seen $60K, let alone in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
And so I got hooked, and I was like, let's go do more of these. A couple months later, found my second one. Did the same process, wholesaled it. We did another $60K on that. And at this point, I got out of debt, and then we had enough cash where we were good for a little while. And so found my third deal a little bit after that, stepped into ownership on it. That one was a little bit more life-changing. And since then, I've been trying to help other people who are especially in a similar situation that I was, get out of that, leave their 9 to 5, spend more time with their families, use storage as a vehicle to provide more of that freedom. And it's just been a tremendous blessing, kind of like looking back on it. The people I've been able to meet, the people we've been able to help, it's just funny. And it kind of looking back on all of it, none of it would have happened had I not been flat broke and desperate.
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes I think God will prepare you for the blessings he has for you. And sometimes that preparation is pain. Because when we look at it, like, I think we experience the most growth when we're uncomfortable. I think when things are going really well, I don't think we grow as quickly.
Not at all.
And so that discomfort really forced me to analyze my entire situation. One of the situations I realized was like, I was terrible with money. I had no idea how to manage money, and it's one of the reasons why I was going broke. So because of that situation, I really grasped and got to see like, okay, here's why we're in this situation. This is my fault. And I was able to gain a better understanding of how to utilize and be in control of my money, and how to use investments to generate wealth and things like that. And so it's just interesting kind of looking back on the full picture of where I was versus where it brought me today. And I think it's all 100% God. I don't think it was any of my own doing. I think he used me to go down this path to help other people, and I'm very grateful for it.
You know, there's a couple things that I wanted to stomp on there. You know, you talked about the marketing thing was not working so well, and it's one of those things that I've chatted with a lot of Christian guys, and it's like, hey, you know, I'm failing at this. This is miserable. Like, I don't think this is what God wants for me. Well, it very well may be, right? Not because he wants you to be failing, but because this may be teaching you the lessons you need, or putting you in the right place, or introducing you to the right person to get where he wants you to be. So get through it, be uncomfortable, force yourself to make it happen. Listen to when God's pulling you somewhere. Like, I mean, he obviously was telling you, hey, why don't you look at this store's stuff? Why don't you look at this store's stuff? You're doing marketing for them. You're hearing it. You're seeing it. Mm-hmm. You're right where I want you to be. Now move on. And then you move on into a different section of it. And too many people look at, you know, maybe they're super successful, so they're like, oh yeah, this must be where God wants me to be, but I'm miserable, you know? Okay, well then maybe it's probably not where God wants you to be. Like, great, like the success or failure of something doesn't mean that that's where God does or doesn't want you to be. So, you know, like, kind of keep listening, keep moving. I love it. Did you grow up? Did you grow up in a Christian household, or was that something that you came to later?
Came to later. We grew up Catholic and grew up in the Catholic Church.
Wait, Sicilian, Italian type person growing up Catholic?
Yeah,
no way. I don't believe that at all.
I mean, that's a rare thing. But let me think here. So my oldest brother ended up marrying a Christian girl. And so my brother got married. I think he was 25, 26 at the time. But years leading up to that, you know, his now wife was bringing him to church and things like that. And so my brother is the one who actually like turned the whole family Christian. And he started introducing it to my parents and then me. And, you know, when he would talk about it, so, you know, it's going to a Christian church versus a Catholic church. It's a little bit different. And so because it was different, there was a little bit of like discomfort there. And some of the things he was talking about, you know, like, what do you mean there's no priest? And what do you mean like everybody's happy and and singing and talking, and like people have Bibles that they're going through during church? Like, you didn't see that in the church that we went to when we're growing up Catholic. Like, nobody brought a Bible with them. Maybe some people did, but I never saw it. And so it was just different. And I always thought my brother was crazy. I was like, man, this girl, I think she's kind of screwing you up a little bit. Like, what is she getting you into here? And he ended up bringing me to church with him, and it felt a little weird because it was different. Mm-hmm. But there was also a sense of me where I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And so I just started kind of getting into it more. And during that time, I was just like, I'm gonna read the Bible. And so I had a Bible, and it took me years to do it. And what I did was, I was just kind of like exploring it, right? And so every Sunday I would read like 2 to 4 pages of my Bible. And I did that for a few years until I finished it. But I was only doing it on Sundays and just kind of like, I'm going to get through this. And so I got through it, and I learned some stuff, but I was a little bit confused too, right? You know, going through the Bible, there's a lot there, and a lot of stories draw back to other books, and there's a lot. And so I just started digging into it more. I started going to church more, and I saw God working in my life, and I did prior too, but I feel like I saw him working in my life more so when I kind of stepped into the Christian faith. And I think part of that is, and this is like, as Christians, we're called to have a relationship with Christ. And so throughout that process, I was growing closer to Jesus and having more conversations with Jesus. And once you know it, the closer I got to him, the more I saw him showing up in my life. And so I just fell in love with it. And so like I said, my entire family now, we're all Christians. We all go to the Christian church, and it's been huge. Yeah, so we grew up Catholic. We're now Christian, and we could talk a lot about this if you want to.
Yeah, it's funny because as you're saying it, I could probably hear people, especially that go to a Catholic church, say, "I'm a Christian too," and we're like, it's Christian is a follower of Christ, right? And it's one of those things that I look at the Catholic Church in a sense of Are there a bunch of Christians in the Catholic Church? Absolutely. Are they following some man-made nonsense? Absolutely. They just may not realize that they're following some man-made nonsense, right? Because they think they're following, it started off of Peter. Peter started this holy Catholic Church, quote unquote, with the capital C and not so much. But the relationship side to me seems to be missing so much in the Catholic Church, because it's just like, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to hear the homily, I'm going to talk to some people. Again, I'm not even going to necessarily need to open my Bible because he's going to tell me what to think, and then I'm out the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, oh man, there's so much more missing. There's so much meat that's missing in that sense. So it's interesting to kind of listen to how you kind of juxtapose those two things. So how, you said it was when your brother was getting married to we'll say a Protestant Christian, like after the Reformation type of Christian, and what year was that roughly?
So this was probably 2000. Well, they got married in 2010, but they dated for 5 years. So, call it 2005 is when they started dating, and then when I started to hear more about it.
Okay. Yeah, so 2010 is when I got married as well, so that's a good year to get married. So you got married in 2018. Was your wife was already a Christian as well?
No, she grew up the same way as me.
Okay.
Catholic.
All right.
Yep. And
how long did you guys know each other before you got married?
We knew each other since we were kids. Funny enough, my dad and her dad coached soccer together. And so I've known her since I was maybe 12, 13 years old. But we never really talked. It wasn't until she was about to graduate college we just somehow started talking. And I was like, I think I like this girl.
Yeah.
And she was just coming back from college, so she was home, and we were spending a lot of time together. And same thing, we dated for about 5 years and then got married.
Nice. Very good. All right. So what was the conversation like between you two, with coming from one Catholic, one Protestant type? Like how do those conversations kind of flow when it came to marriage and all that?
Yeah, I think we probably, this is such a great conversation, or a great question. We probably... trying to remember fully, but we started going together. We started going to the Christian church a little bit before we got married. And then after we ended up getting married in a Catholic church. And there's a longer story to that. But after we got married, we started going to the Christian church together. At that time, my wife was kind of on both sides. She grew up Catholic. That was what she knew. And she also saw something in the Christian faith and church. And then after we got married, that's when I think we really started together, and she became a Christian as well. And But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. It does. It fills in some gaps. It's one of those, I always tell people your two most important things you can do in your life is follow God and find the right wife, right? I say find the right wife because I'm talking to dudes on this podcast, but find the right person you can marry. And if you can narrow those two things in, your life is going to be infinitely better. Doesn't mean it's going to be great. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that everything is going to work out your way. It just means that those two things are going to help you get through all of those hard times a whole lot better than if you did not have those two things. Right?
Yep.
And I was setting myself up to kind of ask about this shift you did, right? So 2018, you guys get married. 2019, you're doing this marketing stuff. And then, so you're a year into your marriage, and all of a sudden you're telling her, hey, like, our finances aren't great. I'm going to go chase storage and go buy, like these storage facilities. Yeah. Where were you guys at conversation-wise, mindset-wise, right? So for me, I think that, again, following Christ is important because both of you guys can be rooted in the same thing and understand that you guys both have what is best for each other in mind. And then all of a sudden, this is a big twist and change for you and your wife. How did that sort of conversation go?
So it was trying to remember back, but there was definitely some nerves and there was some hesitancy from my wife, and I totally understand, but she was kind of nervous about it, more so because she didn't really understand, and I didn't really understand how to fully explain it to her as far as what risk we were taking on. Like, we weren't taking on technically any risk because we ended up wholesaling it, and I didn't use any of my own money, but I still didn't know how to really verbalize that to her. And so there was a lot of uncertainty and some nerves, but like, my wife then and to this day, like, she just supports me with, if I tell her, hey, this is what I want to go do, she'll support me in it. She's going to ask questions and she's going to challenge me and make sure, but she's always been very supportive. She was at that time as well. And she shared in that moment with me, when we got that first check, and it was like, cool, like, this actually worked. Can you believe it? And it was really special. It's funny because I've done other deals since that first one, but I still like, that was the most special one. And I've collected bigger checks since, I hope that doesn't come across the wrong way, but like, looking back, even though I made less money on that deal, it still had the biggest impact on me. And it's almost like I've done a few other deals afterwards and I'm like, oh, this is great and this is a huge blessing, and it's, there's certainly a high and a dopamine kick that comes with it. And there was also this part of like, it still doesn't feel as good as that first one did. And I think that's probably normal.
Yeah, I think that's, especially given the circumstances, right? Like, you're feeling under a lot of pressure. You've got a lot of debt. You've got this new marriage that you're trying to foster and grow. And it's starting off with some bumps in the financial road. You're like, that's going to feel really good when, what do you know, you followed God's path and he helped you out and got you through it, right?
Right.
And of course, that doesn't mean that every time that's exactly how it's going to work out, but it did this time, which was a great blessing for you to be able to share with a bunch of other people, right? To be able to say, hey, this is possible. This is how you can do it. And now you're kind of folding in those blessings for other folks, right?
Yeah.
So I know for me, like my wife was the one who got me into real estate. She said, "Hey, we should look at real estate," because her mom had a rental house and her grandma had 2 rental houses, and then I came to her and said, "Hey, we're going to buy an apartment building," and she was like, "What did you say?" Like, I was thinking a house down the street. You meant an apartment building? And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to buy an apartment building."
Multiple people live? So
that's what we did. Yeah. And a 62-unit apartment was our first investment property.
Wow.
And she was like, what? Yeah. And it was a huge deal. But the conversations all had to shift because it was like, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is how we're doing these things. And, bigger expenses going out the door, but also, what happens on the other side. Like it's we get to multiply the doors, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
But I think that the communication side of the house was extremely important. How do you and your wife stay in constant communication and good communication to make sure that what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what she's feeling, what she's seeing is actually expressed and you guys are actually communicating with each other, not just talking at each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, it's definitely shifted throughout us having kids now. And I think this is one of the things that we're actually in the moment of navigating and trying to become better at. Prior to kids, we always had time and made time to, listen to what one was going through, what their challenges were, how their day was, this and that. And we still do that. But one of the things that we're navigating for the first time is doing that while also navigating, making time for the kids, getting meals and dinners and all of these things put together. Meanwhile, my wife and I both run our own businesses. My wife's a therapist. And so there's a lot of, I think, more moving parts now than we've ever experienced. And so we try to still make sure that we are making time during dinners and after we put the kids down. But it's certainly it's a new thing for us. And so we're navigating that to make sure that we are making time for that. But yeah, so we're certainly learning some new things right now.
Yeah, I would imagine when you have kids, there's definitely new things to learn. And I think that and one thing I encourage folks all the time is like, before you get married, have all of those crazy conversations, right? Open up the can of worms and all that stuff. What about finances? What's it look like to raise kids? And if you start with a basis of already communicating about these things, that when you get married, you continue communicating things. And then when you have kids, you're like, all right, well, there's different things we have to communicate now. And we have to adjust our communication. And but if you've already started on the basis of, hey, we communicate, we talk, we discuss problems, then the problems just change and you keep talking, right? It's when we decide to shut the doors and stop the communication that I think things go awry very, very quickly. So what sort of ways now are you looking at it, right? You're both running businesses. You've got two 2-year-olds running around. So like, how do you guys kind of manage the chaos? What sort of rhythms do you guys have in your life that help you maintain a relationship with each other as well as a relationship with your kids?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Right now, the way that we kind of have things structured is my wife will work on Monday and Wednesdays. I'll work the other days. And so she's got the kids those 2 days. I have the kids, or those 3 days. I have the kids the other 2 days. And because, for me, I get my best work done in the morning. When it's quiet, I have a routine that I like to go through. I like to make sure that I exercise. It gives me more energy for the day. I like to make sure I spend time with God and pray. And then I'll do some deep focused work. And so I get up fairly early in the morning, somewhere between 4 and 5 in the morning. And then our kids are up at 8. So throughout those few hours, I'm getting some really solid work done. Then we're with the kids, or, if I'm with the kids, I'll get my work done, get them up at 8. And then they take a nap from 1 to 3 p.m. So then if my wife's around, we'll spend some time together. If she's working, then I'll step in and do some work during that time as well. And so we're that's part of the navigation as well, as like determining our different schedules work-wise and where we're going to fit them in, and also make sure that we're spending enough time with the kids and that we're spending enough time with each other, because that's most important. And so that's kind of the way that we have it structured right now. And I will say it's at a point right now where it's working, but we know it could be better. And that's what we're figuring out, is how to make that a little bit better.
Yep. There's always improvements that can be made. So jumping on it and keep it going.
Yeah.
Talking of improvements that can be made, let's look at the business side of the house a little bit, right? So you have bought multiple storage facilities at this point, and now you're running a community of people buying storage facilities. So talk about how you transitioned from, working on marketing to buying, like now being the owner of the Storage Rebellion community, while still kind of maintaining a good relationship with your wife and doing all this stuff, because balancing all of that at the same time is a lot, as most entrepreneurs kind of understand.
Yeah, for sure. So previously, when I first started doing storage deals, I was doing the marketing for the Storage Rebellion. After I did those deals, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to help other people. I was like, I want to show people, hey, this is possible. Look where I was. You can do this too. And then since I started walking the path a little bit, I had more storage experience, understood the lingo. I can actually tell people what to do and coach them through that. This is the process. Certainly wasn't an expert, but I knew enough to get people going. And so that's what I started doing, and I really developed a passion for that. And then after doing a few more deals, I started stepping into more leadership within the Rebellion. I ended up stepping away from doing the marketing stuff because Mike, who owned the company at the time, could see where my heart was. Mike was just a phenomenal leader, by the way, and mentor, but he always made sure to put me in positions where I could thrive. And he also knew if where I was thriving was also going to help the business, right? If I was doing things that didn't light me up, it wasn't energized around, it's not going to do a lot for the company. And so I ended up stepping away from the marketing stuff, more into a leadership role. Then over time, I started leading different groups and different calls. And then we started doing events together. And then, last year to 2025 of July, Mike ended up stepping out of the Storage Rebellion to go pursue some other things that have been on his heart for the past few years. And probably up until the point of 2023, you could start to see, Mike was he was the storage guy. He knew what he was doing. He was really good at it. And you could also see that, and I share this because this is what he's shared with our community and our group, and is that his heart just wasn't in it anymore. And the things he really wanted to talk about were not the things that the group wanted to talk about, because they wanted more so storage content, more storage specifics, and he was going down this personal development path. And they're certainly tied together, right? I don't think you can be successful professionally without developing yourself personally. They go hand in hand. But it came to a point for him where the storage content was starting to drain him more than anything else. And he wanted to really just spend his time in his realm of excellence. And so he was also feeling God pulling him towards that. And so he ended up stepping into this new calling of his. And I stepped into the rebellion to lead it forward. And it's funny because now that I'm leading the rebellion, it's definitely more time consuming. And now I've only been in the ownership role here for the past eight months or so. So we're at a point right now where we're changing a lot. We're putting a lot of new systems in place. We're bringing in new team members. I was leading multiple calls and groups. I was doing too much. Let's say that. I was doing too much at the beginning. And so now we're delegating a little bit more, and we brought in more storage experts, high-level coaches to lead different groups, which has helped me to step out. And, kind of my long-term vision for this company is I want to help people create freedom using storage as a vehicle. But I talk about this all the time where we can help people make money in storage. But if you're not right spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally, that wealth is not going to make you happy. In fact, it might only amplify other problems in your life. And so we try to incorporate a healthy balance of the storage specifics, but also helping people grow in a way where they are growing spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally, which I believe are pillars to success. And so we are embedding it, and I think we're doing it in a more balanced version. I think Mike was trying to do it. It just wasn't balanced maybe properly. And so as far as what we're doing right now, I think there's a healthy balance of what we're incorporating and helping folks with. But at the end of the day, we want to help as many people as we can. We want to help people find success in storage, but we want to help you become a better individual, better husband, better wife, better father, or we want to help you relationally, spiritually, like I was saying. And so I think that's one of the core things that makes us a little bit different. But as I look, especially we have a higher level group, it's called the Insiders, and this is for storage operators. So the only way into this room is you have to own storage facilities already. And that is shifting into a much higher level group. And so one of the things that I recognized very early on, based on where I want to go with that, is I had to replace myself. I wanted the group to be so high level that I was no longer qualified to lead it. And so what I did was I brought in a storage expert who had far more experience than me and was also a great leader, also a great coach, and aligns with where we're headed and our goals and our mission. And so he stepped in to lead that group. I still am a big part of the experience, the vision, the visionary, the customer journey, the events and how they're structured, and how we want people to go into those events, how we want them to leave the events. And so I've kind of stepped back quite a bit as of today, and I'm doing a lot more of the visionary stuff and the direction of where we're going, and just putting the pieces in place and putting the right people in place.
I think for running a business is kind of what you have to do anyways, right? If you're the one running the business, you don't have a business, you have a job. Right. If you're the one that has to do everything, right? So finding the right people to fill in those gaps and understand and have the humility to go, hey, I'm not the expert on that. I can put somebody else in there. Because all too often when we're running our own business, it feels like we have to be the ones doing everything. And you're not. You're not the one that has to do everything. Find people who are better than you to fill the gaps, and find compliments to you so you can make it happen. So I love that you hit on that. So what has your wife thought about you taking over the storage rebellion while, you having new kiddos? Because you did that when you had 1-year-olds instead brand new, right? 2 1-year-olds running around, and I'm going to take over this business. How'd those conversations go?
My wife has had to witness me stepping into these big opportunities, and she was all for it. I mean, she was really excited about it because she has watched my progression throughout the storage rebellion over the past several years, and she got to see where I started and kind of where I started to move up, and the different positions Mike started putting me in higher level positions. And so she was always super supportive. And then when the opportunity came to take over the company, I mean, she was thrilled and excited for me and supported me tremendously. And I was very fortunate because I have such a good relationship with Mike, and we essentially kind of built the Storage Rebellion together, because when he started it back in 2018 is when he brought me on. And when he called me back then, it was just an idea. He's like, I'm thinking about doing this, and I think I need a marketer and this and that. And so we spent a lot of time together, figuring out the business and who we were going to help, how we were going to help them. And I contributed to where I could. But anyway, she got to my wife got to see that journey, and she's just a huge support. Like I said earlier, whatever I'm feeling that I should step into, like she's at my back, and she knows at the end of the day, whatever I step into, I'm going to give it my all. And I think that probably gives her more confidence to be, go do this.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, especially in a world today where not everybody's word means what it should, and where we're kind of going. So the fact that you guys have built a good relationship and you guys are running that together, I love it.
Yeah.
As you continue to raise your kids and bring them up in this entrepreneurial type of world, have you given much thought into how you kind of want to introduce your kids to a business, or how you want to introduce them to real estate? Obviously, they're still very young, but just kind of curious what your future projections are.
Yeah, I definitely have thought about it a little bit. I want them to ultimately do what they feel called towards, but I certainly want to embed a lot of the mindset elements, and I want to teach them how to invest, and I want to teach them how to be smart with their money, and I want to teach them how to prepare a future for them and their families. And so how to do that is still one. It's interesting you're bringing this up, because it's actually something I've been pondering on a little bit, is how do I want to do that? But it's certainly something I want to get them into. I want to teach them a lot of these different elements. I think we talk about like entrepreneurship. There's so many qualities within an entrepreneur that tie into your life as well. I think as far as like the mindset and the relationships is a huge part of you being successful. How you handle and manage those relationships, how you talk to people, how you treat people, how you become an individual of your word, and you do what you say you're going to do, and you put your heart into everything. Like, I think those are all great qualities. And so I would love to see them do their own thing and be entrepreneurs. And so I plan on instilling, I guess, maybe as much of that as I can. And at the end of the day, I want them to be smart with their finances. I want them to know how to invest, and all of those key elements. Yeah, I think those are all super important.
Very much so. And I think that the more that we're intentional about those things with our kids, the more we have those conversations, the more we're exposing them to things. Again, I love the way you said, I want them to do what they're called towards, right? And sometimes the only way to know you're called towards something is to even be exposed to it, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, that is something I feel like a pull towards. That's great, right?
Right.
So, I want my kids to be exposed to anything and everything. If I could bring them into, I've brought them into all sorts of different business adventures that I'm doing, cool. So they could see it, that they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I like this, or, oh, I don't like that, or, boy, I don't know how you do that, or, hey, can you tell me more about this, right?
Yeah.
So I love being able to do it. So it's a lot of fun, especially as the world is changing a lot towards the AI side of the house, and how can I expose my kids to things that they can learn from that. And grow from, and the ideas are never ending in my brain, so it's hard to tone them down. But
to that point too, I was going to say, as far exposing them to as much of that stuff, I totally agree with you. I think that's the best thing to do. That's the only way they're going to learn, kind of figure things out, and what they like, what they don't like. What I've tried to do, and again, my kids are still very young, but being healthy is important, and so I work out 5 days a week. And I remember when our kids were little and they were just in little bouncers, they couldn't move yet, I'd have them down here and I'd be working out with them there, and I want to do those things with them. I want to exercise with them. I want to be healthy with them. I want to become the person and live the life that I would want them, or feel comfortable with them stepping into. I was thinking about this the other day, I want to become the man that I want to see my son become, and I want to become the the person I'd love to see my daughter marry. And so like when you have kids and you know, like you start to learn a lot about yourself when you have kids. You start to realize like they're going to be a reflection of you, and who they become is a product of their environment. And so I've, over the past, year and a half, 2 years now, I've been really looking at, where am I maybe falling short? Where am I maybe not being the best leader? Where am I maybe not setting my kids up for success? Where am I not, I'll give you an example of this. Early on, I'll be completely honest, I still do this from time to time, but I'm more aware of it now, and I'm working through it. But like early on, it was hard. And so like I would lose my patience, and I would raise my voice, and I would raise my voice at my wife who didn't deserve it. And so quickly realized like, oh, okay, like do I want my son to think that it's okay for him to raise his voice at his wife? No. And so you just really start to get a clear picture of like who you are and who you want to become and who you need to become for your kids. And so like over the past 2 years, I feel like I've done some of the most deepest work, and I've also been able to get the clearest picture on who I currently was, because I think they expose a lot within you. Like they started to expose that I'm maybe not as patient as I thought I was. And they start to expose these other areas of you, and you're like, oh, that's something that I want to become better in, not just for me and my spouse, but for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, they walk around with little mirrors as well, and you get to see and be like, oh, yeah, that little guy learned that from me. Crap, like, and then what's going to happen when he's a teenager? What is he going to learn from me and take home? Like this, I need to adjust some of these things now, And so, I love that you spoke a few things there that I've foot stomped over and over again, especially on this podcast. Is I want my sons to see a man that they can look to and say, hey, I want to become like that. And if I'm not showing up in a way that says, hey, like this is how I would love my son to be acting with his wife or with his kids, then I'm showing up wrong. Same thing with my daughter. Like, is that a man that I would, want my daughter to marry? Would I be proud if my son-in-law did those things? If not, I might want to be adjusting what I'm doing, because I'm showing my daughter what it means to be a good husband. I'm showing my daughter what it means to be a good man. And if I'm not doing that well, I can't expect her to make good choices later.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. I'm curious, did you kind of just realize that on your own, or did you start how did you come to be more aware of that, of like, they're going to be a product of the man that I am?
So I'll rewind a little bit. And it's when I knew that I was going to marry my wife, she didn't know it yet, but I did. And it was one of those things like, crap, I'm going to have to be a better Christian, because I'm not, I'm kind of playing the part right now as opposed to doing anything else. And now I'm going to be, hopefully leading my wife. And that, I've wanted to be a dad since I was like 13. So I needed to get step one done. Let's get married. So we got married. And then I was like, all right, well now I eventually want to be a dad. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we, looking back, I'm glad that we did not have kids right away. I wish we did. I really wish we did. I wish we met when we were 20 and we got married and started having kids immediately. But as I'm thinking about it now, I was probably not in the right mental space to have kids yet, right? Because I was still kind of learning how to be a man that leads his wife, let alone leads kids, right? Made a lot of mistakes, figured out, a few things that I was not doing so well as far as the communication goes, as far as I thought I was doing okay. And then you realize, no, you're not. And then when we started having kids, like I just saw so many dads that were not present with their kids because the military would send them all over, or because they just chose not to, or they would get home and have a 6-pack every night and let the kids go do whatever they wanted. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't let that happen. And I think it was one of those that I said, hey, like, what do I feel like I was missing when I grew up? I'm going to give that to my kids. Mm-hmm. And that could be overused. Don't. I hope nobody hears this just as I want to give my kids everything, because especially if you're talking to a wealthy family, you're just going to spoil your kids rotten as opposed to training them up in the way that they should be. So I think I just looked at it and said, hey, I want to be more present. I want to be more available. And when did I actually sit there and go, I need to represent well? I don't know if I could necessarily pinpoint or who actually kind of put it into my brain, but I just know that I looked at my sons, especially, and I said, if I want them to be good, strong men, they need to be able to see it at home. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know when it came about, but I do know that it's always been, as far as I know, since I became a dad, I said I need to be a good representation of what it means. And maybe if I were to really rewind it, I could say, hey, like, what did it like becoming a Christian man, being a strong Christian man? It was one of those, like, there was this, and I've talked about him before on this podcast, but there was this FBI agent that was attached to us in Afghanistan, and strong dude, FBI SWAT team out here, you know, doing stuff in Afghanistan with the guys we were attached to. And if we were not on a mission on Sunday, he was going to church. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, to me, it was like playing a part, right? I'll go to church when I'm home, you know, like I'll think about, you know, opening the Bible when I'm home. Like I'm in Afghanistan right now. This is like, but he was like, no, this is who I am. This is part of my life. And I was like, that's a good example. I need to do that. So that was one of those where I was like, okay, I need to make this more of an example. And then I just kind of laid that into being a dad as well. Like, how do I be that FBI agent to my kids, right? That my kids see that I open a Bible, that my kids see that I go to church, that they see that this is important. And I just kind of started applying it. So I don't know if that actually answers your question or if I even know an answer to your question, but yeah.
No, it certainly does. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's interesting. Yeah, I kind of looking back, like, well, I first want to say, like, the fact that you were just aware of it is a big thing. And the fact that you were seeking to be better, I think that's an important quality, because I think a lot of people just coast through life and they just kind of experience each day versus trying to show up at their best. And how do I continue to learn? How do I continue to grow and be a better person, better husband, father, all of those things. And so I'm sure a big part of it is just that you and a lot of other people, myself included, have that desire to know and be better, which kind of forces you to do that. But yeah, I find that interesting. I appreciate you sharing it.
Of course. You know, it wasn't until I was probably in my maybe early to mid 30s that I really started to analyze things a little bit differently, probably in my mid 30s. Yeah. And I looked at my dad, how he raised me, because there was a long time where I just felt like, you know, my dad didn't do half the things that I felt like he should have, because he was working all the time. Like 16-hour shifts was a pretty normal thing. And so he was a correction officer for a long time, like while I was in high school, junior high and high school. And then, so he'd work a lot and I would never really see him. I was like, well, he's working nights. Like, he's gone when I get home from school. He gets home from work right around the time I'm leaving for school. So I never really got to see him. So I was like, I'm not doing that nonsense. I looked at it in such a negative light, as opposed to, where did he come from? What did he experience that got him to that point? And it's one of the reasons I like to ask about people's dads, because if they could sit back and realize, okay, my dad raised me in this way because he was modeled a certain thing. Did he run away from what he was modeled, or did he run towards what he was modeled? And what am I doing? Am I running away from what was modeled, or am I running towards what was modeled? Am I doing it on purpose? Am I actually fathering on purpose? Not just because that's what my parents did. So my dad had a very rough upbringing, and he was like, I'm never allowing my kids to be abused the way I was. I'm never allowing my kids to experience the things I did. So he did what he thought was best, which was have a stable household, bring in the income, and that was it. And I had to take it a step further, because he set a stage for me that said, hey, I didn't have to grow up and worry about abuse. I didn't have to grow up and worry about whether or not, you know, we had a roof over our head. I'm going to be nice and stable. Wow, he set me up in a way that he was never set up for. And that allowed me to step into another form to where hopefully my kids are in a step, like they get to look at this and go, now my ceiling is their floor. They get to start at a place that I was never at their age. So I would say that, those mid 30s was really a time for me to reflect and say, okay, Dad, like, I have a whole different respect for you, knowing how you grew up and the tools that you had. You did a great job with the tools that you had. And now you've given me tools that you never had, that I get to apply to my kids. So I'm hoping that just keeps stacking in those, you know, for generations. Now we just get to like, my ceiling's your floor, my ceiling's your floor, my ceiling's your floor.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I think absolutely it will.
Yeah, I hope so. Right. And then we'll keep on growing. And, you know, as long as we keep putting our faith in God and growing in the right direction and keeping him at the center of it, it doesn't mean that, you know, all of my, you know, that financially all these things, like, I'm not a prosperity gospel kind of guy that we're just like, oh yeah, you know, if I keep, you know, God's just going to make me rich. God's going to make me rich. You know, it's more on the inside that you get the richness than it is always on the outside. So, and hopefully I'll keep growing that with my kids. So
absolutely. It's a great quality.
We'll see. Well, I mean, yes, it is. It's just whether or not I express it. We'll see whether I express that good quality all the time, right? Because again, I'm not so great at it from time to time. I look at those fruits of the Spirit and go, boy, oh boy, my tree could be a little bare on that fruit right there. I think I'm going to do a little better job there. So
we're all human.
Yeah, aren't we though? Aren't we though? What is your goal kind of with schooling? I look at I told you before we started recording, I homeschool, so my kids may or may not pop in here, and I love the homeschooling side of the house. So you've got two Christian parents that are entrepreneurs, like kind of running their own business stuff. What is that? What do you guys think about with schooling? I mean, you got 2-year-olds, so you have only another couple years to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah, so right now we are leaning towards putting them in a private Christian school. We actually have a very top-rated Christian school that's probably 4 minutes up the street from us, so it's very convenient. And we've been looking into that. We've gone back and forth on the homeschooling aspect. I'm all for it. My wife would probably have to stop working if we did the homeschooling, but maybe not. I mean, there's a lot that we're learning right now, but I'm certainly open to it. And I think in the beginning, she'd rather put them in a private school. And now with like all the things that we're seeing in the world, and she's becoming, I think, a little bit more for it. So we're kind of could potentially go either way. You know, I think if we did end up homeschooling, it may be when they start entering into like the middle school, high school days. But I honestly, I couldn't tell you for sure. Like, I don't know, but I do know we're talking about it. We're kind of open to both. We're looking at a school that's close to home that seems like a great fit. And so we'll keep praying about it and see where God guides us. I think we're at a place now where we're more on the same page as far as what would probably be the best thing for them. And so, yeah, we're kind of still navigating it, but I think it could go one of either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll as the Bible says, seek wise counsel. I'm not sure I'm quite the wise portion, but I've got experience in both private Christian schools as well as the homeschool side of the house. So if there's ever any questions you have, let me know. I look at it, and I strongly encourage folks, if they have even an ounce of desire to do homeschool, then to just give it a whirl and go for it and see how it goes. I was the one who kind of encouraged us to do the homeschool on our front. My wife was like, well, I'm still active duty. Like, there's only so much I'm going to be able to do. And I'm the one who had to kind of run it while she was in still. But it was, I think it's been a blessing to be able to do it, to have more time with them. Like, I get to bring them to work with me. You know, they'll finish some school up sometimes at one of the businesses and just like, okay, well, let me finish school and then jump in here and do things. And, you know, they get to see all sorts of stuff that they would never have been able to. And I get to teach them what I think is important, not always just what the school thinks is important. So
Right. I think that's probably, I was going to say, I think that's probably that's one of the things, other than being able to spend more time with your kids and ensure that they're in a good environment, is it's what you want them to know versus what, you know, anybody else wants to try and embed in them.
There's a curriculum right now that my son is, or this part of this math that he's doing right now is like these Roman numerals. And it was like, okay, what is 2,427 in Roman numerals? And I'm like, I don't care. We can skip that portion. I mean, do you know 1 to 10 in Roman numerals, or maybe even 1 to 100? I think we could stop at C. I don't really think we need to go all the way to M's and all of I don't think we need to do that. And he's like, yeah, I know all of those. I said, then we're done. Just skip that part of school, right? Like, I don't that's completely not necessary.
Yeah.
And we get to tailor it to whatever. And I also get to go, cool. Okay, well, you know, you're in, 6th grade math, but maybe I'm going to give you a 9th grade reading book or a 10th grade reading book because you're reading really well. Or maybe I should do like 5th grade vocabulary because we're missing on something, or whatever. We get to adjust whatever we want,
Yeah. And
like Rourke, he's my youngest boy, and he's in kind of 1st, 2nd grade. Like, he's not really in a grade. We have multiple grade levels that we do because like last year he tested at like 4th grade math, but I had to read all the questions to him because he didn't know how to read the questions. So he's like, I don't get the reading, but I can do the math. So it's like, man, I get to tailor to what he needs and to what he wants. Yeah, so I realize I'm kind of pushing homeschool on you, but that's not necessarily the point. It's just, these are the things that I've started to think about differently, And even before, when we first got married, I was like, no, I want my kids to be in private school or in public school because it prepared me so well for the world, blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at the world after we had kids and I said, I don't need my kids prepared for that. I need to prepare them for this, but I don't need them thrown to it to be prepared for it. I need to prepare them for this, not let the world prepare them. And that's just kind of what I was thrusted into. And I was like, I don't want that for my kids at all. Like, when my son came home from, my wife and I were just talking, this little picture right here is like when he was in kindergarten or 1st grade. And he was at this private Christian school, and he would come home with his memory verses and he was doing all the stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. I am never putting my son into public school. Like, he's got such a positive attitude. He's coming home learning the Bible, and I'm like, this is great. And then here we are multiple years later, and I'm like onto the homeschool side now. So
interesting.
I love both of them. That was an amazing school. If I could have moved that school to here in Florida, I would have. Like, I loved that school. It was awesome. I loved the teachers that he had. I loved the principal there. It was funny because I was an agent back then, and so I'd carry a badge, a gun, and wear a suit and tie every day, right? So I went to pick him up, and it was after, he's in the after school program, and he's coming down the slide, and I bent down and I'm giving him a big hug, and the principal comes over and he pats me on my back, and he's like, "Hey, your gun's showing." He's like, "I love that you have it. Bring it all the time. Just wanted to let you know that it came out of your jacket, because my jacket was folded up on the inside of the gun, so I covered it back up again." And he's like, "I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming here with that on. Like, I love having that around." And I was like, "I like you, buddy. Like, this is great." It was just such a wonderful school to be a part of. I really miss that school. I'm glad that we're homeschooled. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah. Did you only switch because you moved?
So no, he was at a private school here, and I'll give you the background a little bit. I've told it before on the show, but it's well worth repeating. He was in third grade when we moved down here. So we spent kindergarten, first grade, and second grade in that school up in Virginia. And then we moved down here, and I put him in a school that I thought that I did my research on and was happy with. And then turns out I was not at all happy with it. Like the way that they had structured the stuff, and they would never be able to sufficiently answer questions about curriculum and different things that I was asking. And I was like, what is happening? And then, so it was like halfway through the school year, I pulled him. I said, no, he's going to go to a different school. So I put him in this other private Christian school. It was a classical Christian school. So they learned Latin and they did all this stuff. But it was like an overwhelming change from one school to the other, because he had already been shifted into one. And then I threw him into this other one. And now he's got to learn Latin. He's got to learn all this stuff. And he was at that school for like 7.5 hours a day, 8 hours a day. And then he'd come home and we'd have like an hour and a half or 2 hours of homework. And I was like, you're in third grade. Like, you're spending 10 hours a day doing school stuff. Like, this is asinine. When do you get to be a kid? And it was at the end of the day when I had already worked all day. He had already been to school all day. We were getting the worst of each other, sitting at the table, trying to work through math or trying to work through Latin or trying to work through whatever. And it was like, this is exhausting. Like, I would rather spend 3 hours in the morning with you when we're both fresh and excited versus 2 hours at the end of the day when we're both exhausted. So I talked to my wife. I did a bunch of research. I talked to a bunch of homeschool dads and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'd love to do this. And my wife is on board. So we changed it up. So starting in fourth grade is when we started doing homeschool, and it never looked back.
Well, I'm going to have to show this recording to my wife and be like, oh, I think we're going to homeschool.
And there's so many different tools and different things out there now for homeschool that communities and groups and online, offline, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you could tailor it to whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, you can get a good private Christian education right there in your house,
Yeah.
So like, we use a couple different programs. One of them is Abeka that we really like that the school up in Virginia used for their core curriculum. And it was such a good, it was higher level. It was really good. The kids stayed focused on it. And I liked it a lot. So now we've even pulled it into our homeschooling. They've got videos for it. They've got, you can do your self-paced stuff versus, the video-based whatever. There's so many different options. It's wonderful.
That's really good to know, because like I said, we're still kind of learning a lot about it. And what I recently learned, just because I actually have some friends that homeschool as well, is that there's a lot of stuff available, a lot of programs and things like that. And so I think that's really good to know.
Yeah,
because a lot of people like what's that?
And they have co-ops and stuff too. So like the cooperatives where you guys get together and like the multiple families will go get all their kids together because people are worried about socialization, of course, as you should be. You want your kids to socialize. And like they're like constantly meeting at different places. Like they whether it's Nerf gun wars or it's park day or, doing different classes with other students in different co-ops. Like my kids took electronics classes together with other kids. And
that's cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. We've got a really robust homeschool group down here. So it's good.
Yeah. That's very cool.
But anyways, as you're kind of going through all of this and thinking back on our conversation, is there anything that you definitely wanted to discuss that we have not got to yet? We bounced all over the place.
We did. I enjoyed it. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that I would like to? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. I'm always happy to go deep into any topic that you want to go deeper into. But yeah, man, I enjoyed the conversation thus far and kind of we did cover a bunch of different elements, which, I enjoy doing.
Good. Well, I have greatly appreciated having you on, Chris. I love talking about all these things, so we may have to do a 2.0 and go a little deeper, or maybe have some conversations about the homeschool stuff too, or whatever. Yeah. More storage, more community, more all the stuff. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, hey, I'm in storage, I love it, I want to come jump into the Storage Rebellion, or maybe the Insiders?
The Insiders, yeah.
You know, what if anybody's hearing that and they want to learn more, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you, Chris?
Yeah, they can go to storagerebels.com. We have all of our information there. I'm also always available to jump on a call and connect if that's something you're looking to do. You can just reach out to Chris at thestoragerebellion.com. We can have a conversation. But yeah, we're continuing to grow, and we love helping people. So if that's a industry you're in, or even exploring, because we have things for new folks as well, would love for you to check us out.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, I've greatly appreciated chatting with you. I love that you are a man of God, trying to grow business, trying to be a great father and a great husband. So as I always tell people, God is number one, wife is number two, kids are number three, everything else is after that. So I keep the priorities where they need to be. I appreciate the stories that you had and the wisdom that you brought into the show. I thank you very much for coming. For those of you who are listening, if there's anything that you got value out of, please let us know in the comments what your favorite part was. Share this with somebody that you think can get something out of this. And of course, reach out to Chris if you're in the storage world. He would love to hear from you. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody listening. We'll see everybody on the next show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.